Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into something crucial: the integrity of information. Our mission, basically, is to explore what happens when a core truth, something really fundamental, gets mixed with other elements. Things that might seem attractive or maybe just convenient.
Exactly. And our source material actually has a term for this: adulterated messages. It really frames the whole discussion around a biblical text, 1 Corinthians 2.2, which pushes for this intense focus on just Jesus Christ and Him crucified.
Okay.
So we're analyzing the argument that when you start blending that core revealed message with, say, human philosophy or maybe political tactics or even slick marketing, you don't just add to it, you fundamentally change it, you distort it.
And the core idea here, which feels very current, is that this kind of mixing isn't harmless. The source argues it actually stirs up confusion, causes division. It's presented as a problem we see today that kind of echoes challenges faced way back, like by the Apostle Paul. It shows how easily the original purpose can just drift. Let's get into it with this story the author tells. It really sets the scene for this danger of drifting off course. He talks about being in a car, driving to Chicago with his wife. He's in the passenger seat, reading a manuscript for a Christian publisher. Standard stuff, you'd think.
Right, but it quickly turns into something else. He describes his own reactions while reading, starting with hums, then some groans, mounting frustration. He's literally shaking his head, and finally he just puts it down and says, "Wow, this is terrible, I don't believe it."
Just a visceral reaction.
Totally. And it wasn't just a disagreement, it was a realization that the author of this manuscript, someone who should have been faithful to the core message, seemed to have lost the plot.
He concluded the book was, quote, almost entirely wrong. Not just wrong on details, but wrong at the very foundation. The shock was that this person, supposedly a trusted communicator, didn't seem to understand the actual gospel message anymore. They had adopted this mix, this blend of other ideas, philosophical, political, that hid a serious theological problem.
And that failure to even recognize the core message anymore, while maybe still looking the part, that's the heart of the warning here. The distortion isn't always about telling outright lies. Often it's about the methods used, how you package it, how you try to make it popular. You make it easier to swallow, maybe, but it loses its power.
What's interesting is how the source breaks down these external influences, these adulterants. You could almost apply this framework anywhere, right? Like a company losing its way because it got distracted by the latest trends instead of sticking to its core mission. So what are these specific adulterants?
Yeah, the source points out three main categories, and you can see why they'd be tempting for any group wanting to grow or have more impact. First, there's philosophy or human wisdom. This is basically trying to blend human intellect, our own reasoning, with what the source considers a divinely revealed message. The danger is subtle. It makes the message seem, smarter, more respectable maybe. But the argument is, by doing that, you're undermining its unique authority. You're acting like it needs our logic to back it up.
That makes sense. It's almost like saying, this foundation is great, but let's just get a committee's opinion on the paint color to be sure. It implies the original design isn't quite enough on its own.
Exactly right. Then the second category is political methods. This is about using the tools of politics, power structures, activism, maybe lobbying alongside the core truth. The appeal here is obvious: results, quick change, influence in the public square.
So how does using political tools distort the message itself, according to this source?
Well, it risks confusing earthly power with the actual mission. When the focus shifts to political maneuvering, getting votes, using rhetoric to gain influence rather than aiming for genuine internal change in people, the means start to take over. The how overshadows the why.
Okay, and the third one, this feels very 21st century, marketing and psychology. The source specifically mentions using sophisticated marketing techniques and insights from human psychology, mainly to boost numbers, get more people in the door.
Yeah, this is where metrics can become the main driver. The source suggests that when growth, sheer numbers becomes the top goal, the message inevitably starts to shift. Instead of sticking to the potentially difficult, challenging core ideas, communicators might start tailoring things to what the market wants to hear, what plays well.
That's a classic tension, isn't it? Do we stick to our possibly unpopular core mission, or do we tweak it to get broader appeal, maybe ensure the organization survives?
And the source comes down hard on this. It says the consequence, even if you fill the seats, is really damaging. These mixed methods might boost popularity, sure, But the resulting message, it creates confusion and division. It leads to a deep deviation from what the faith is supposed to be about. The goal isn't just followers, it's faithfulness to the original truth, no matter the head count.
Okay, so if these mixtures, these adulterants, are so problematic, what's the proposed solution? How do you maintain that purity?
The author points straight back to the Apostle Paul's advice to the Corinthians. Essentially, return to basics. Get back to the most basic content of the message.
And that basic content, the pure focus, is identified as Jesus Christ and Him crucified. For someone maybe listening outside that specific tradition, what does that single focus really mean in practice? What does the source say you have to give up?
It demands something pretty significant internally. The source is clear. Following this path requires self-denial and carrying the cross. In this context, that means accepting hardship, sacrifice, as potentially part of the journey, not trying to find ways around it for comfort or worldly gain.
Which directly pushes back against certain kinds of messages, right?
Right.
The source explicitly warns against promises of easy success. It says the real message isn't about telling people they'll automatically get glory, wealth, or abundant life, in a worldly sense.
Exactly. And that's where it clashes fundamentally with that marketing adulterant we talked about. If the core message involves commitment, sacrifice, maybe even suffering, well, that's a tough sell using modern techniques built around making people feel good now. The promise has to be understood differently, spiritually, not materially.
And this isn't just about the message content, is it? It's also about the messenger. The author, Pastor Hugh, really emphasizes this need for accountability. He insists his own stuff, audio programs, YouTube, whatever, must be open to examination, open to scrutiny.
That's a key point. This insistence on fidelity, regardless of his own credentials or academic background, it connects directly to the specific context he's worried about. He voices concern about the state of teaching, particularly in Taiwan and the Chinese-speaking world. He mentions a perceived scarcity of strong, local Taiwanese preachers who are really digging deep into theology. There's a fear that the depth is perhaps fading.
But he does offer a positive example, right?
Yeah.
Someone who represents this kind of enduring fidelity.
Yeah.
Pastor Stephen Tong.
Yes, exactly. Pastor Tong is presented as this powerful counterexample. And it's not just nostalgia, it's about the lasting impact of his work. He's around 85 now, came to Taiwan maybe 50 years ago. And he used, interestingly, audio recordings tapes back then, I suppose, to teach Reformed theology, Calvinism, which is known for being pretty rigorous, very systematic stuff.
And the author holds this up, saying, look, people might have questioned Tong's academic credentials way back when, but fast forward 50 years, and the material still stands. The claim is that Tong offered incisive discussion, Jingpi de Lunshu, that holds up today. Often, the source suggests, it's actually more accurate, more helpful than teachings from people with fancy titles like doctor or professor.
It really underscores the source's main argument, substance over status. Fidelity trumps credentials. The message lasted because, in the author's view, it was pure, it was unadulterated.
There's a great analogy the author uses to make this point about different styles, but the same need for purity, the food analogy.
Ah, yes, the culinary one. It's quite vivid. Pastor Tong's a deep, complex theological teaching. That gets compared to a Manchu Han imperial feast, this legendary, multi-course, incredibly elaborate banquet. Rich, requires effort to digest, definitely not fast food.
But complexity isn't the only path to faithfulness. The author, Pastor Hugh, then compares his own approach. He calls his own discussions more like a small dish, xiao kai yi dai, simple, maybe more accessible. He even mentions a program he does for older folks called Chatting and Eating Lunchboxes, very down to earth.
And the beauty of the analogy is that both the feast and the simple lunchbox rely on the same thing: quality ingredients, honest preparation. The simplicity of the lunchbox doesn't imply it's watered down, it's just a different format, but ideally, still faithful to the core truth. It shows fidelity isn't tied to complexity or the target audience. Clarity and faithfulness are key, regardless of the presentation style.
So as we start to wrap this up, the final warning from the source is quite stark. These adulterated messages, they're described as frightening, like poison even. And a crucial point is that this mixing, this adulteration, isn't always malicious or even conscious. The source suggests the adversary, Satan, can use both deliberate attempts to corrupt and our well-intentioned but misguided efforts to blend truth with worldly methods.
Which makes the call for self-examination pretty universal, doesn't it? It pushes us towards asking some tough questions, applying critical thinking to our own lives, really. Questions like, How might I be mixing, maybe unintentionally, some ungodly or just incompatible philosophies with my core beliefs, whether personal or professional? Or how might I be tempted to use political means, leverage power, to achieve something that really should be pursued through purer, more principle-based methods?
It really calls for this constant internal audit, checking our motives, checking our methods, and thinking about that danger of unintentional drift. It leads to a final thought for you, the listener. If the source is right, that the purest message often demands things like self-denial, a really tight focus. How do you, in your own life, your work mission, your personal code, your worldview, how do you regularly check the fidelity of those core principles? How do you make sure they haven't been slowly, maybe subtly infiltrated by those convenient philosophical or market-driven adulterants that seem easier but might be leading you off course?
That kind of ongoing fidelity check, it's maybe the hardest work there is. We hope this deep dive gives you some tools or at least some questions to think about the messages you consume and the methods